First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Bitar, and I'm the Beef Cattle Veterinary Extension of the College of Veterinary Medicine for the University of Florida, located here in Gainesville. Secondly, and more important, I want to congratulate you all for taking leadership in your learning process and joining the 2020 Alvin Warnick Reproductive Management School. You took time in your busy agenda, signed up for this important program, and now you're moving forward to learn more about cattle reproduction. So today I will present to you all ranchers, farmers, and hard workers of the beef cattle industry, the basic principles to understand the most common reproductive vaccines used to maximize reproduction performance and or to reduce reproduction-related losses. Remember, this is one initiative of the South Florida Beef Forage Program. Right away, I want to remind you all that it's very important to work closer with your veterinarians to not only establish, but also strengthen the veterinary client-patient relationship, as well as to develop a reproductive vaccination program specific to your ranch, to your farm. There's no one size fits all. And the reasons for that are several, because ranchers and farms have differences. Examples of those differences are such, but not limited as, there are different opportunities and availability to bring the cattle to be worked in the pens and the corrals. There are specific forage, nutrition, and mineral programs for each farm. The diseases, risks, and biosecurity programs are different between farms and ranches. The movement and transit of cattle in and out of the ranch are specific to your operation. The personnel available and the experience of them to monitor animals are different. There are different management levels within others. So, vaccines are one of the most important components of a good herd health program. Why I say that? Because vaccines can protect before the disease happens and reduce the detrimental impacts of the diseases when they happen. But unfortunately, the vaccines are not 100% effective. So in case you don't have one, try your best to have a reproductive vaccine plan in place in your ranch. And in case if you have one, don't forget to keep it updated to match your needs because we are in a dynamic world, things are changing. What is a vaccine? It's a product designed to safely mimic the biology of tissues invaders, inducing a lasting adaptive immune response without causing the disease. The fundamental principle of vaccination is to administer a killed or attenuated form of one infection agent or a component of a microbe that does not cause the disease, but elicits an immune response that provides protection against infection by that live pathogenic microbe. I know it's complicated, so in cattleman's language, vaccine is a tool used to show and train the cattle immune system to what they will need to look for next time the cattle encounters the pathogen, to then respond and fight back that infection in a faster manner. Make sure the cattle remember what to fight for next time they come infected by that pathogen. Build up memory, that's very important. And I bet that cow will remember. She will have memory about that situation. So how does the vaccine work in general? We usually vaccinate the cattle via different routes and for different reasons, either via systemically, IM or sub-Q, or mucosal, nasal administration in this case. But the main point here is that we are giving the antigen to the cattle, and the antigen, it's the part of the pathogen that the vaccine was constructed from. And the cattle immune system will be looking for that antigen to then develop an immune response against it, as well as developing a memory against it too. That's a very important feature of the vaccine. So let's take a closer look and insight of what this cattle received here. This is one oversimplified way to explain. And I know this seems complex, but please bear with me that I will try my best to explain to you in a simple way, a basic principle of vaccination. So once the antigen is given to the cattle, generally the immune system of the cattle needs to find that antigen. The antigen is the foreign, so usually that's done by the innate immune system. Don't worry, those are the cells of the immune system. They need to find that antigen, to process them, and to transport into the lymph nodes. That's what we are seeing here. At the lymph node, the antigen will be presented to specific T cells and B cells that match that vaccine antigen. T and B cells are type of lymphocytes, or in other words, they are type of the white blood cells, the cells from our immune system that fight and are related to the immune response. So there are a lot of T and B cells in the system, and in theory, and for reasons beyond these that I won't explain in this talk, because it's very complex, the immune system has matching cells for all antigens, in theory. However, it will take a lot of attempts and time to find the ones that perfectly matches. Once the matching occur, then those very specific lymphocytes that match that vaccine antigen will be activated and clonal expanded. In other words, there will be a massive production, let's call it this way, of those specific T and B cells that match to that specific antigen. Once those cells are produced in large quantity, we're going to have those effector cells, also called CTLs, and these are the cells responsible to kill the pathogens and the infected cells. Also, and very important, there will be the production of the B cells, in this case here, and those are the cells that produce the antibodies. Those antibodies are those Y-shaped type of things here. These are very important for a lot of pathogens to have antibodies. Most importantly, there will be the development of the memory cells, B and T cells. That's the so-called adaptive immune response. That's very important for the success of the vaccination program, because these cells will be the ones that multiply in a faster way next time the animals encounter that pathogen. Those will be those specific cells that will match that antigen, and it's going to induce a quick immune response. So if that first time of exposure to the antigen was adequate and induced a good memory, the cattle was well immunized, let's say the way. Then the second time that the exposure occurs, there will be more copies of the right lymphocyte cells available in stock and ready to respond. Those effectors and B cells. You shorten the number of clonal expansions required to provide effectors and memory cells, and the effector cells will be released sooner, and more antibodies enter the circulation sooner on subsequent response, so it will be fast. Another important point here to emphasize is that in naive cattle, those cattle that never was exposed, neither vaccinated against the vaccine, it might be required more than one vaccination to induce appropriate immune response. The so-called boosters, that's what we see here. And it's true for certain types of vaccines, especially the killed vaccines. So that booster vaccine is to make sure one adequate immunization was achieved. That's what we see here. This is antibody level in the time after vaccination. After the first vaccination, the level of IgG and total IgG, certain type of antibodies, wasn't too much, wasn't too high. Then, when that second vaccination occurs, the booster, you can see a dramatic increase of antibodies producing. That's what we want. Another important point here is that vaccination is different from immunization, different from protection. Vaccination is the act to giving the antigen against a pathogen that we want to induce the protection. If that vaccination induce a measurable immune response, in this case, for example, we can measure the IgG, the immunoglobulin G, that's a type of antibody, then occurs immunization. And protection is when that measured immune response does protect the animal when encountered with the pathogen. So be careful and be aware of those things. Sometimes we vaccinate a cattle, but does not induce an immune response and may not lead to protection. our goal is to vaccinate the cattle that induce a good immune response, leading to a protection. There are some different types of vaccines available to be used in cattle, and it's important to be aware of their features to improve your reproductive vaccination program, as well as to avoid making mistakes with induced pregnancy loss, something that can occur. The live vaccines, commonly referred as modified live, means that the organisms are still alive and have the ability to replicate in the cattle, but they have been altered in such a way that they don't cause the disease when they are given to the animal. Killed means the organisms are not longer alive, so they cannot replicate in the animal. Some advantages of the modified vaccines are that they may elicit a broader immune response, so they can induce cell-mediated, those co-effectors, as well as the antibodies. They may require fewer doses. Generally, they induce longer-lasting protection, and generally, they are less reactogenic, and they have relatively lower cost of production. However, some challenges or some points to consider about the live vaccines are that there is uncertain window for attenuation of that pathogen, and they can revert to pathogenicity. So you might vaccinate the animal and thinking they're protected, but if that pathogen revert their pathogenicity, they might induce the disease that you're trying to protect against. There's a little bit challenging stability. They need to be mixed and usually short after. Usually they come in lyophilized, so in a powder version, and they have a diluent. You need to mix it up, and when you mix, it's recommended to use a few hours after. The ability to analyze the final product is harder because challenging because sometimes that attenuation is not adequate. There's a risk of pregnancy loss if not used as labels, especially in the case of the BVDV modified live virus vaccines. They are very sensitive to light and heat, so be careful, especially considering in Florida. Regarding the killed vaccines, those can be the whole organism or subcellular or a subunit of vaccines. Their advantage of the killed vaccines is that they are safer because they cannot multiply and revert pathogenicity. They don't induce abortion in case of the modified live vaccines. And they don't shed, so you can vaccinate an animal and that animal is not going to shed that vaccine strain to another animal. Usually they are feasible, technically speaking, when they are being used. What I say that is usually they come ready, they come in a way ready to use. You may just need to shake or stir up the bottle a little bit, draw it and use it. And once you open that bottle, it can have a little bit longer shelf life. So it can be in the fridge for a few days, maybe even weeks, in case you're using good techniques. The down point is that they require multiple doses. So they require that booster and maybe even a third dose to induce an adequate immune response. They may require adjuvant to increase their immune response, and there is a different kind of adjuvant in the market. They are usually higher, they have a higher cost to be produced, therefore they're going to be more expensive vaccines for the producer. And they have variable effectiveness. So for some diseases, they induce a good immune response, for other ones they don't. The recommendation of use for the licensed vaccines in the United States is another important point to know. There are 4 major categories that vaccines are recommended to be used in cattle based on the USDA's regulations. And here they are. The first one is that they are used for the prevention of the infection. In this case, it prevents all colonization and replication. One example here is the leptospirosis vaccine. This is one of the more strong and stringent labels, kind of very hard to achieve, but it's very important. Second one is that vaccines are labeled for the prevention of the diseases due to the pathogen. So usually the efficacy is about 80% or more. And one example is the bovine respiratory disease complex modified live virus vaccines for persistent infection prevention. So they are, in this case, they are recommended to be used for vaccination of healthy cows and heifers prior to breeding for prevention of persistently infected calves caused by BVDV type 1 and 2. Third one, and the most common one, is as one aid in the prevention of the disease. So they produces a clinically significant effect preventing disease in challenging animals. In this case, this vaccine is recommended for vaccination of healthy cattle as one aid in the prevention of the diseases caused by Trichomonas virus. So this, in the fourth classification, is as one aid in the control of the disease. So that's alleviate the disease severity or duration. In this case, this vaccine is recommended to use as one aid in the control of disease caused by BVDV type 1. So the label 1, so the animal not going to be infected. The label 2, it might be infected, but it doesn't develop the disease. Label 3, in other words, is the animal is infected, develop the disease, but not in a severity that it was expected. So it reduces that disease. In the label 4, the disease or the consequence of the disease is going to be alleviated. So it's a little lighter level of protection, let's say this way. So reproductive vaccination for cattle has 3 important pillars. So the 3 reasons why we vaccinate cattle against the most common reproductive diseases are to allow for the success in the reproduction outcome. I mean, to give conditions to the cow or heifer to get pregnant, to reduce or eliminate failure to conceive. Second one, once the cow or heifer is pregnant, to maintain the pregnancy, aiming to avoid or reduce the pregnancy loss. That can be divided into 3 categories: embryonic death, abortion, or stillbirths. Stillbirths are the calves that die at birth or a few hours after. Abortion due infections causes are very hard to work the case out. There is a lot of financial losses involved. For example, when the abortion happens, then disrupt the calving synchrony and the cow might be sold. It might be too late in the game to try to recover from it. So don't neglect it, nor take chances. The third one is to protect the newborn via colostrum. So we aim to vaccinate the pregnant cow or heifer in her last month of gestation and boost the colostrum quality. That is the first way and very efficient way in protecting the newborn because the type of the cow's placenta, limiting the transfer of immunoglobulins to the fetus. This is theme for another presentation. And even though this is not directly related to reproduction, but it's very important to begin of the success in the health of the future replacement heifer and so forth. Okay, so what are the most common reproductive diseases with commercially available vaccines for ranches in Florida? And what are the impact, reproductively speaking, of those diseases? Among the viruses, we have infectious bovine rhinotracheitis, also called IBR, that's caused by the bovine herpesvirus type 1. And usually it causes early embryonic death, abortions, usually more than 4 months of gestation. This is reproductively speaking. Another common virus is the bovine virus diarrhea virus, or BVDV, and we have the type 1 and type 2. They also cause early embryonic death, abortions. If the cow carries the gestation to term, then the calves can be born with congenital defects, kind of like a monsters or so. And if depending in the stage of the gestation that the cow gets infected, it can induce a persistent infected calf, that's very important because that calf is going to be a constant shedding source for cattle. On the bacteria side, the two more common ones that we have vaccines are leptospirosis, in which we have 5 serotypes or serovirus: Leptospira hardiobovis, Pomona, Cryptophosa, Canicula, Icterohemorrhagia. So it also induces reproduction failure, in which leptospirosis can induce early embryonic death, abortions, usually in third month of the gestation and in the third trimester, stillbirths, so those calves that die at birth or right after, and another syndrome of calves that are born weak as well. Brucellosis, also called Banks diseases, it's caused by Brucella abortus, and usually induce abortion in the last trimester of the gestation. And if the cow carries the calf to term, then those calves can be born weak. Very importantly is that it's a zoonotic, so this can be transmitted to us, to humans. The good thing is that it's eradicated, and we are not mandated to vaccinate more, unless there is a reason, maybe arrange sport cattle to another country that requires, then it's recommended to be vaccinated. Regarding the protozoa, we have two very important pathogens here in which there's a vaccine available. Campylobacteriosis and vibriosis, that's caused by the Campylobacter fetus. Before was known by Vibrio fetus subspecies veneralis. That causes whenever it's in the herd, it's very detrimental reproductive speaking, because they not only induce embryonic death, they also happens the embryonic reabsorption, so that cow get pregnant, but right after a few days or few weeks after pregnancy, that embryo dies and it's reabsorbed by the cow, and a lot of times it's unnoticed. So the cow comes and hit again and induce long irregular cycles, inducing infertility. So you don't see a big impact, and sometimes you don't even see what is happening. And also induce abortions about the 5th or the 6th month of gestation. Trichomonas fetus also induce the trichomoniasis, also called trick. That's another important protozoa that acts similarly to vibriosis, so induce early embryonic death. Also the repeat breeders, cows, they are going to have long irregular cycles, induce abortion as well, usually less than 5 months gestation, and also induce a pyometra. So pyometra is the pus in the uterus. That's a picture that I'm showing here. That's a pus in the uterus, and that's an ultrasonography view as well. So that uterus is going to be there filled with pus, and that pus is going to be there for a long time until it's going to be diagnosed and then treated. And then that cow is going to be infertile, and that pus is a source of a Trichomonas fetus. Very important to know. And if you are, or vet is diagnosing a lot of pyometra in the pregnancy check, better think about Trichomonas fetus. Among the vaccines available to be used, we can find and classify them in two other types according to the number of diseases that they induce response against. The monovalent ones that contain only a single strain of a single antigen, example, Leptospirosis bovis, Trichomonas fetus vaccines, among others. Whereas multivalent or polyvalent vaccines, they contain 2 or more strains or serotypes of the same pathogen. Example, BVDV1 and 2, Leptospirosis, those 5 serotypes, or different pathogens, antigens. Example, the 5-way virus vaccines, in which contains the 5 virus IBR, BVDV1, BVDV2, BRSV, and PI3, or the leptospirosis containing the 5 serotypes, as I mentioned previously. Usually, the number after the vaccine name means the number of pathogen antigens contained in that vaccine. For example, in the titanium 5, as you can see here, you're gonna have 5 antigens against those 5 common viruses. And you can see in the other vaccines as well. Spirovac L5, Express FP10, Express 5, Covishield Gold FP5, L5. So the polyvalent vaccine most likely will have different claims in their labels, and each antigen in the vaccine mixture will have one specific claim, as presented early in the USDA 4 categories of vaccines claims. But do not ever mix monovalent vaccines in the same syringe in case using several vaccines in the cattle at the same time. The vaccine company will do a better job, and it can damage the antigen formulation of the vaccine. So never ever do that. So follow a good practice of vaccine management and handle. It's very important to take time and read and follow the manufacturer's recommendation. So don't underrate the vaccine labels. I know it can be boring, challenging, and even hard to read those small words. But it's very important information in the label to ensure adequate use, allowing to get the best of the technology. In addition, it's very important and it can give information that can help you avoid getting in trouble. As most of the vaccines, they have meat and milk withdrawal periods to be followed. So be careful, don't neglect that. Take time, read the label, learn more about it, and understand what you are using. You already heard that the immune system needs time to develop one adequate immune response, and in some occasions, it also needs more than one exposure or vaccination, so the booster. So planning to vaccinate in advance is well advised. Also, adequate health is needed as well as nutrition. This is one important feature to consider, in special knowing the large amount of cell divisions, so those clonal expansion and energy involved when there's an immune response to a vaccination. So the animal system has priorities to fulfill. When nutrition availability is scarce, maintenance is prioritized over reproduction and health. So those thin cows might not be caring much about those thin cows might be caring more about surviving than inducing a good immune response to a vaccine or to become pregnant. Remember that nutrition is very important. Unfortunately, in the biology field, sometimes things are not perfect, and there might be some animals that will not respond to the vaccines, the so-called vaccine failure. Some of these possible reasons are presented here. Vaccine handling, in special, is in this warm part of the country, Florida, and more pronounced in South Florida. It's very important. Heat can damage the vaccine, especially the modified live ones. There are several good vaccines best practices regarding handling, storage, and use describing the beef quality assurance best practice of vaccine guidelines. And that's a subject to another presentation, but you can get good information in the BQA website that I presented here. And then try your best to follow and also even be certified as a beef quality assurance program. One important factor that can induce vaccine failure is the improper or no booster administration. Usually the booster is recommended 3 to 6 weeks after the priming vaccination. So if you don't get that booster done, especially the killed vaccines, or the time between booster and the prime vaccination is not adequate, that can be a reason for vaccine failure. Another important thing is the mismatching. So maybe the vaccine antigen is different from the pathogen that's infecting the cattle. I know there are some vaccines that induce heterologous disease or cross immunity. But there are other vaccines that they don't, and there are some pathogen that cross protection is not well. So that mismatching of the vaccine antigen used in the disease that's happening in your cattle, that might be a explanation for vaccine failure. Another reason is that maybe the animal is already incubated the disease. An incubation period, again, is the period when the animal is infected until they develop the first clinical signs. Some diseases are going to take few days or weeks. So maybe the animal appears to be healthy and you vaccinated, but it's already with the incubating the disease. So that might not have a good immune response. And sometimes the animal is already immunized. There's some level of protection against the disease, but the challenge is too much. There's too much challenge that overwhelms the immune system. So that's another point to consider. Health status can be another explanation for vaccine failure, as there might be one inadequate immune to prevent the disease, or the immunosuppression or stress status of the animal that are not allow for the adequate vaccine immune response. Nutrition comes up again, as you already heard, and we'll keep hearing a lot. And trace minerals must not be forgotten. So be on the top of your cattle nutrition program to ensure your cattle have more than enough nutrients to supply the immune system when it is needed the most. Remember the amount of cell division taking place to induce a good immune response. So what can be one example of vaccine use benefits we have? I want to show the summary of several BVDV vaccine studies done in the US. This type of summary is called meta-analysis. They evaluate the efficacy of bovine viral diarrhea virus vaccines protecting against reproductive loss in different studies performed in different areas and conditions of the cattle management in the US. In summary of the results, vaccination was associated with one overall decrease of abortion about 50%, as well as approximately 85% decrease in the fetal infection rates in vaccinated animals, those caused persistent infected that I told you all. Their conclusion is that a sound vaccination program will reduce reproductive losses, but may not completely prevent all reproductive consequences of virus infection. Virus speaking, just remember that. So again, as unfortunately, there's not 100% protection with the vaccines, but it's better to have a sound reproductive vaccination program. And in case you don't have one, don't waste more time and work closer to your veterinarian to develop one. And importantly, have a reproductive vaccination program aligned to a good biosecurity program, a good nutrition program, as I told you, and I'm going to keep referring to it, in a good heart health program, in a low stress environment. So it's a combination. It's not a reproductive vaccination program that's going to do the magic. You need to be allied to another programs as well. Here is a timeline view of the most common activities done or happening in the beef cow reproduction cycle. There is one overall recommendation to vaccinate and induce a good immune response protective to most common reproductive diseases before they challenge the cattle. So before calving, the goal is to boost the colostrum quality. Then before the breeding, to avoid the introduction of the diseases and to allow the cows to cycle and conceive, to get pregnant, as well as avoiding those early embryonic losses and repeating breeding count that leads to infertility. Once the cow is pregnant and confirmed pregnant at the pregnancy diagnosis, then it's advised to boost the immune response against some pathogens, and especially the ones that their vaccine induced short duration, like leptospirosis. Then the cycle continues and the time to pre-calving vaccination comes again. However, it can be challenged to have the cattle around the corrals or the pens to be vaccinated. So that's very dependable in each ranch, in ranch management. So how to best proceed? This is another reason to work closer to your veterinarian to develop the best vaccination program that fits your operation, to weigh the risks that you are having and where the protection is needed the most. Here, I will show one example of a reproductive vaccination program as a base to be adapted to your operation, matching your management program. Do not rely only on this, as you might have different challenges in management in your range. So before breeding seasons, before you put the bulls with the cows or before you're artificial inseminating, what we call pre-breeding, we recommend overall to vaccinate against the most common virus, IBR, BVDV, 1 and 2. Also again, the bacteria, leptospirosis is another important one, and the protozoas that I told you, Vibrio or Trich. And in case of the later, Trich, again, it needs to be evaluate the risk of this disease in the herd. In a closed herd where cattle are not introduced and in ranches where pregnancy losses were very minimal in the past breeding season, then these vaccines might not be, all of these vaccines might not be necessary. But again, it's important to work with your vet. The other side of the coin is in herds that are constantly introducing cattle, have neighbors' cattle around in the vicinities, sharing pasture with another herds, within other risk factors. Then most of the times the risk will be greater. Therefore, there is the need of a more comprehensive and strong vaccination program, including vaccines against more pathogens. It is recommended to have this vaccination done no less than 30 days before the starting of the breeding season, and even about 45 days before it begins. That's because you wanted to have the cattle develop immune protection against the disease before they can occur. You remember the immune system needs some time to develop the immune response from vaccination. One other point to be aware, it is that IBR and BVDV components of the vaccine can cause inflammation of the ovaries, thereby reducing fertility for a short period of time. So that 45 days to 30 days will allow to at least 2 estrous cycles before the females can mate. This might be the annual booster. If they are cows and were vaccinated previously, so cows that belong to your herd and were not purchased or introduced into the herd recently. In case replacement heifers, you need to make sure they were primate vaccinated previously and had their booster after their priming vaccination. If that's the case, then it would be recommended to prime vaccinate the heifers around 60 days before the starting of the breeding season and booster them around 40 days before the breeding season. That will also be the case for cows without vaccination history and were introduced into the herd. Make sure you know the type of the vaccines used previously, killed or modified live, and it's well advised to have the replacement heifers immunized previously with modified live vaccines to minimize the chance of abortion induced by modified live vaccines, BVD and IBR speaking, in the booster vaccination when they are pregnant. That will be a hot topic that your ranch needs to be aware. So modified live vaccines used in pregnant cows that never were vaccinated with modified live vaccines before still can have abortions induced by vaccination. And this is a situation in which you don't want to go. History and understanding the type of vaccines used is important. I reinforce here the importance of reading the vaccine labels before using to understand what you are using again. Once the cows or heifer is pregnant, then we want to keep them pregnant. That's logic. There is some vaccines that induce a short duration of immunity, like 4 to 5 months, and that's the case of the leptospirosis vaccine available in the US. You also recall that leptospirosis can induce mid to late term abortion, in the 3rd month or the last trimester of gestation. So the booster with leptospirosis vaccine might be one indication of vaccine recommended at pregnancy diagnosis, especially in high-risk areas. And notice that leptospirosis can be found in wet, flooded areas. Does that ring a bell to you here in Florida? Also, IBR and BVDV vaccines could be used here to induce fetal protection as well. In addition, this might be also the only time in which some ranchers will have the cattle available to be worked in the corrals. So that might be the opportunity to booster vaccinate the herd. And if done a little bit late after the end of the breeding season, it could have some impact in boosting the colossum quality, but won't be the ideal. If that's the case, remember again about the killed and modified live IBR and BVD vaccines. As the modified live virus vaccines, they can induce abortion if cattle were not previously vaccinated with modified live virus vaccine. And I'm sure that you don't want to induce abortion in a pregnant cow, especially in this in this time of the gestation. That's like shooting your own foot. Here at the pre-calving vaccination is not much directly related to reproduction, but it has the aim of protecting the upcoming newborn calves, as we aim to use these vaccines to boost the colossum quality. In that case, the best results would be achieved if the vaccines are given around 6 to 4 weeks before calving. Again, here's the important to know about the previous vaccination status or history of the cows and heifers regarding the use of modified live vaccines. In other situations, if no vaccination was done at pregnancy diagnosis, then that might be the chance to booster the herd. However, it might be a little bit on the game. And again, the reproductive vaccination program depends a lot on your ranch features. One important point here that I did not mention, but it's very important too, is that for sure the herd will need to be vaccinated against other pathogens that are not related to reproduction, but can cause impact in the cattle health. Be aware of that and try to integrate it in your reproductive vaccination program. In the pre-calving vaccination time, usually is a good time to have those other vaccines done. Clostridium vaccines is a great example for that. As most of the breeding in Florida are done by natural service, we cannot forget the protagonists, the bulls. They have a huge impact as they serve a lot of cows in the breeding season, and usually, on average, one bull is used to breed around 30 cows. Importantly, the bulls are one of the major sources of venereal diseases transmitted to the cows and heifers, so that one bull can have a detrimental impact on 30 or more cows in your herd. It's very important to have them vaccinated, and that's usually done before the starting of the breeding season. And following the similar recommendation to the cows, we would like to have them vaccinated at least twice before starting service in the cows and heifers and getting their annual booster as well. Another important point here to present is that the commercially available Trichomonas monovirus vaccines don't have a good efficacy in bulls, therefore are not recommended for them. We do highly recommend to test the bulls for trick before breeding seasons, and that's usually done with the bull breeding sound evaluation, the bull BSE, and it's advised well to remove those positive bulls from the herd. I hope you understand a little bit more about the basic principle of reproduction vaccines in cattle and also can appreciate and value even more the importance of them in beef cattle, especially in the beef cattle production system. I know that it's complex, but that's not impossible. So being proactive, working closely with your veterinary, again, as I said, to not only have one reproduction vaccine program in place, but keeping evaluating and adapting that reproductive vaccination program to the herd needs, as things are dynamically, your risk factors can be changed. To that, not only to get most of your cows and heifers pregnant, but to keep them pregnant, at least you can do something on some infection pathogens with reproduction vaccines. So try your best to do that. With that, I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this presentation. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me either via email or via phone, as you can see here on my screen. Thank you, and looking forward to talk to you.